We're seeing these record prices right now for
Yeah.
cars at auction. Like
Yeah.
the supercars are going up in value. Lamborghini is
Yeah.
having record sales. Prices are skyrocketing. But meanwhile, you see the consumer's purchasing power is going down each and every year. They're spending a record amount of their disposable income on cars. I think payments over $1,000 a month have now also hit a record. What is your thought on this K-shaped car economy?
Yeah, it is, isn't it? But I think a lot of it is, it's also, actually reminds me in almost in a scary way of what we saw in 20, which was that a lot of the rich people are kind of moving back into assets. You're seeing gold and silver at where they are. You're seeing cars, you're seeing art. Like, you wonder if maybe people are starting to get worried about holding, non-physical assets for whatever reason, or they think that there's a good investment opportunity in that stuff. But clearly that's happened. Like some of these cars that were $3 million. I mean, I'm talking about my cars going up, and it's been something. But there are some cars, the Enzo sales recently out of this world. To me, that mentally, that's a $3-4 million car. Well, the last 3 sales have been $8, $10, $12 million for them. Like, that's crazy. That appreciation beats out almost any like security investment you're going to make.
Now, what does that do instantaneously to the rest of the market when you see one big sale like that?
It gets around, and then I think there's like a reset of expectations about what those cars are worth. And I think there also starts to become, I know this because I've experienced it myself, there also starts to become this fear that if that's a car you wanted, you got to go buy it right now. Because a year from now, it might be even more. And so I really wanted the Ferrari 599 GTO. I think that's a really cool car. When I bought my Countach, I didn't really think about one, but they were the same money, and it was in my mind. And that was a 600 car back then, and now they're selling for just a little under 2. That was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I saw a couple of them, hit 1.2, 1.4. I'm trying on Auto Trader, like, okay, are they ready for sale? I gotta get this. I gotta get one of these. And like that kind of stuff happens. Like, and then there's this like groundswell. Okay, that's an $8 million car now. Well, if I'm someone who views, I gotta have it in my collection, right? I gotta get one. And so that happens. That like really, really happens. And I think it just continues to drive those cars to go even higher.
Why was Mecum so pivotal? And now, for those unaware, this was this recent auction that these lineup of cars all went for sale and just broke every record imaginable.
But that was an unusual auction, though, because most of those cars came out of this one collection where all of the cars were pretty special. They had all been optioned in this very unusual way, with bizarre color choices. Virtually all those cars were completely undriven, and virtually all of them were the last one. So it was like the last 599, whatever, like the very last. So those kinds of things are always going to be special. And it kind of checked all those boxes. I actually think the more pivotal sale was last weekend in Arizona. RM did a big sale of cars that weren't really special. A red Enzo, a gray Carrera GT. And they kind of continued those prices. And it was like, I could see all the crazy Mecum cars getting those prices because they were very unusual cars. But now here we're sitting looking at some cars that aren't really unusual, that don't have a big hype around the sale like the Mecum auction did. And you're like, oh, maybe this is what they're worth.
But how much of that was influenced by Mecum?
Maybe. But that's how this all works, right? You see one auction, and then the next auction shows up, and people are looking at the last auction. Okay, well, that's what that's worth. And then they're going crazy on that one. And then 4 or 5 auctions from now, you're going to see if the market standard for a low mile Carrera GT is $3 million, that's what people are going to start paying.
So I'm curious, though, who is buying those cars at Mecum? Who is paying this? And who is buying that car with like the green interior and like the McDonald's colors?
I am curious to find out the answer to that. I'm curious to find out the answer to that for sure.
Why do you think some people would say it's suspicious?
I think it's a little suspicious because they went for so much money, and also because, and I'm not saying this was the case at all with that auction, but also because anyone who's in the business, and especially who's around this type of cars, know that there's some fishy stuff that happens at those auctions. Cars are pre-sold. The lamp in the back makes a lot of the bids. There's some sketch things that happen. And so there are always, whenever something like this happens, there's always weird conspiracy theories like, did this happen or did that happen? I definitely am not saying that any of that happened in this auction, but I think there are people who are sophisticated in this space are always a little skeptical.
What would you say is a maybe valid conspiracy theory? That
there was one collector who really wanted the cars. Here's the way it would go.
Yeah.
There's one collector who really wants all the cars. They've already been consigned to Mecum. That collector creates an agreement beforehand that he buys the whole collection for $40 million, whatever it is. I don't know. And then he makes sure to win. and he cuts them in on the deal, right? Like, okay, you already consigned the cars. I'm going to pay $40 million. You get 10%, 20%. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I give them another 10 million, whatever it is, and then they make sure to win. And the auction house knows that the cars are already pre-sold, so they can bid because then they know the guys. And then you get to these crazy numbers that makes the auction house look good. Again,
Yes.
I'm not at all saying that that's what happened in this case. Who knows? And I think these cars, those particular cars, were such unusual outliers in the market that I wasn't as surprised as a lot of people to see them reach the numbers that they got to. Like, there are a lot of red 599 GTOs. You're never going to find the very last, the weird color, the 0 mile. Like, that car, for a lot of people, that car is going to check a very special box that is worth paying a lot of money for. However, at some of these auctions in the past, certainly there have been some things that have happened. And so there's always a little bit of question whenever something like this happens from some sectors of people.
Now, one thing I thought was really interesting was the 250 GTO sold for less than what was expected, while every other 2000s car sold for way more. Are we seeing a shift away from older cars as younger buyers just don't relate to it?
Yeah, I mean, would you give up your Ford GT for a 60s? Is that something on your mind?
I would for that car.
Sure. But you get my point.
But if you told me a car from the 30s or 40s, I have zero connection to it.
Boomers muscle cars in the 08, 09, when boomers were like in the, 06, 07, the muscle cars were up above $1 million and all that. And eventually it cycles out. And the 250 GTO is still a very special car that anybody, even in the next generation, will still find to be special, I think. However, the number of people for whom that is the holy grail will certainly decrease. It's not really usable. It's slow. It's old. It's etc. And you start to see people in younger generations appreciating the McLaren F1s and the Ferrari F40s and this kind of thing.
Yeah,
and that's going to continue.
What do you think will then be the future holy grail of car investing? Because for me, growing up, it was always like the Lamborghini Aventador. Like, that was sick. I'm 27. Like, when I was younger, like that was
those
the car.
Those types of cars will continue to increase, I think, or will at least drop a little bit more and then someday start to go back up. I think the McLaren F1 is the Ferrari 250 GTO of the next generation. It's already kind of proven that. Honestly, the production numbers are almost identical. There's about 65 road cars, which is basically the same as the number of overall 250 GTOs. And there's been a huge appreciation recently that doesn't seem to be abating. When the cars shot up in value, several people who owned them sold them pretty quickly, and they all got all the money. So those are $25+ million cars now. I could see those going even higher.
Now, one of the biggest traps with healthy snacks is just how misleading they are. A lot of protein bars, I've noticed, still spike your blood sugar, contain hidden sugars, or contain ingredients you can't even pronounce. And then you're hungry again an hour later. That's why we love the sponsor of this clip, War on Sugar. They make a bar that actually keeps your blood sugar stable, tastes great, and contains ingredients that you recognize.
War on Sugar bars are amazing. They're designed specifically to avoid insulin spikes, and their sweetness comes from monk fruit, which is exactly how they stay sweet without getting that blood sugar response. Plus, they use healthy fats and natural fiber to slow digestion and keep energy steady. And the result is amazing. It's no spike, no crash, and no craving afterwards, just clean, sustained energy that actually lasts.
And the ingredients list is refreshingly simple. No sugar alcohols, no preservatives, no natural flavors. Everything comes from real nuts, real fruits, and real cocoa.
So whether you're watching your blood sugar, eating low carb or keto, traveling or training, or you just need a grab-and-go bar that actually fills you up, War on Sugar is that bar.
They've got great flavors like lemon blueberry, peanut butter pistachio, and chocolate peanut butter crunch.
Seriously, guys, I highly recommend it. Just go to waronsugar.com and use code ICED10 for 10% off your first box. Once again, that is waronsugar.com. ICED10 is the code for 10% off your first box. I have a problem. When I eat, I spike and I crash and I cannot focus. I do not suffer that with War on Sugar bars, so I highly recommend it. Thank you so much to War on Sugar for sponsoring this clip.